Good morning, everybody. It's Claire Jones here from Your One Life Healthy Weight Solutions, and I'm here with you on Monday, the 27th of February 2023, and I'm here for episode 36 of Monday Morning Matters. Now, for those of you who are new to following me or in my group or in my audience generally, just to say what Monday Morning Matters is all about. It's basically every Monday morning at 9 o'clock, I go live in the Your One Life Healthy Weight Solutions group and to talk with you about a popular weight loss or weight management topic. Every month we have a theme, and this month's theme is all about eat less, move more, and why it's not as simple as that. So if you are watching live, I'd love it if you said hello in the comments, because what that helps Facebook to know is that you like to watch these videos, so it will show them to you more, and it will also help other people who've perhaps been wanting to tune in but perhaps have sort of got busy with other things, that I've now gone live. So if you could say hello, that'd be fantastic. I don't always get to see the comments when they come up, unfortunately, so if I don't respond as they come up, then I will obviously come back and acknowledge it afterwards. So just to recap on what we've covered so far this month, I started the first episode with the problem with Eat Less, Move More, and explained a little bit about why it's not quite as simple as we are perhaps led to believe, and that is sold to us. I then moved on the next week to talk about calories in and the issues around that. I then went on to talk about calories out, so exercise and general movement, and had a bit of a talk about that, and again why it's not quite as easy as we're led to believe. So today what I'm going to share with you is my personal experience around what I did, what I was able to do that made me successful, because my story is for 25 years I was yo-yo dieting, and I was trying to do the whole eat less, move more thing, and I was stuck in this kind of endless cycle of losing weight, gaining weight, losing weight, gaining weight. I didn't know how to maintain a healthy weight. I didn't know. I was never in a position where my weight was stable. It was just always up and down. And eventually I managed to solve this. So that's what I want to share with you today, about practical things that you can do. That I'm going to obviously make some suggestions, that things you might want to try. If you have also been struggling with this sort of struggle of, trying to lose weight, finding it really difficult, falling off the wagon, regaining your weight, and then, going through this pattern. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about my personal experience. As I say, what I found was that I could either concentrate on exercise and getting fitter, but I found that when I did that, I wasn't able to cut my food very much for very long, and I'd just end up getting really hungry and ended up going on a binge, and then I would just think, oh, what's the point, and give up. And I couldn't understand why it wasn't working, because this is what you're supposed to do, right? But it wasn't, as I say, really working for me. I also found that when I was cutting my food intake a lot, if I was focusing on that I would really struggle to exercise. I would find if I was doing anything strenuous, it would be feeling like I was wading through treacle. And again, I wouldn't stick at it. And I would just end up rebounding and regaining all the weight that I'd lost, because I just wanted to eat everything because I'd cut it all out. So that didn't work very well either. I would say it did work in the short term because I lost weight, but I always ended up coming back. And the other thing that really struck me about this was that I found that it was mentally really hard to focus on both eating less and moving more at the same time. And then it dawned on me, what if I was to cycle between the two, where I had periods of time where I would eat less and not exercise too much, and then periods of time where I would exercise more but not cut my food back too much, and get some balance, and start actually fueling my workouts and eating to recover from my workouts, but without going overboard. And so that's what I discovered was actually what worked, was not trying to do eat less and move more at the same time, but cycling between the two of them for varying periods of time. So what I'm going to talk through with you now is what I did. And these are the things that worked for me. Now, I'm not saying you have to do exactly what I did, but what I am saying is that this is what I've discovered with, working with my clients and obviously my own personal experience, that actually trying to lose weight continuously whilst also doing lots of exercise is actually cutting our noses off to spite our faces, because all we end up doing is not being able to sustain it and end up getting really fed up, and we lose all our confidence and our motivation, and we just end up going back to square one. We can avoid this by getting some balance between the two, and also by working on our mindset to make sure that we're fully ready for what it is that we're trying to do, and we fully understand what it is that we're trying to do. So, things that worked for me. So there's two different ways that I've done this that have been really successful for me. And the first thing is, what I did was I had short periods where I would have a very big calorie deficit, so much more than I would recommend for gentle weight loss, because I wanted to have periods of time where I could perhaps lose a few pounds quite quickly. So I would have periods of time where literally just for 2 to 3 weeks I would be in a very strict calorie deficit. But it was short enough that I could commit to it. And it was short enough that it didn't affect my metabolism. It was short enough that I could manage around social occasions and not have to worry. So I chose my periods of time when I did this very carefully, where I was thinking, right, okay, so for the next 2-3 weeks, possibly 4, there's not anything major going on in my life where I can really concentrate on this, and I don't have to worry about my doing too much exercise. I can just do gentle walking and things like that and stretching, and it's short enough that it's not going to impact on my fitness, but it's long enough that I can get some good results and give myself a little bit of a turbo boost. And that's what I did. And I would lose, when I did that, between 10 and 10 pounds and a stone in that period of time. And then what I would do is manage myself very, very carefully out of it into maintenance, and then concentrate on exercise to maintain the loss, but in a way that I was able to eat more, but not too much. So I could eat to support the exercise, eat to support the training. And of course, in doing that, I was able to get healthier, to get fitter, to get stronger. And then when I was ready mentally again to put myself through that quite strict period, then I would repeat. And that's the way that I lost 3 stone. But I did it over a long period of time. And I used those periods of maintenance to learn how to eat properly, to learn how to manage my relationship with food, to learn how to eat to support my health. And I chose very carefully the periods of time when I would do this so that it wouldn't impact on the rest of my life, and that I could actually concentrate on it for long enough, but only in short periods of time, where as soon as I would start to feel like it was getting really hard, that was a sign to me that it's time to stop now and it's time to move into maintenance. And that's basically how I lost the main bulk of my weight, where I was able to then keep it off. And I was able to keep it off each time I went through these periods of maintenance, because I was really focused on managing my food intake in a way that wasn't going to regain the weight, but also wasn't trying to lose it. And I was really focusing on, what do I need to do to make sure that I'm doing this in the healthiest way possible to support my health, my fitness. And as I say, mentally, it's really quite hard to stick with quite a severe calorie deficit. So it really is important to be ready for it. And I did lots of mental preparation for it. And I made sure that people around me knew what I was doing, and that I was only going to be doing it for a short period of time. Now, some people might say, well, that's a fad diet. Well, no, I would disagree with that. I would say that actually there was a strategy behind what I was doing. I was fully prepared for what I was doing, and I was making sure that I was doing it for only a limited amount of time with maximum results. And I managed myself into it very carefully, and I managed myself out of it very carefully. That kind of approach does not work if you just do it on a whim. It's got to be carefully managed and supported, and I had people around me to support me with what I was doing. And this is where things like very low calorie diets can be very effective, because you don't have to follow them for very long, and they can take all of the decision making away from you, and all you've got to do is just follow it for a short period of time. But some people follow them for much longer. For me, I found that whilst that worked in the short run, in that I lost the weight, I actually lost 5 stone doing a very low calorie diet, but I put it all back on within the next 3 years. I didn't actually learn much about myself and my eating behaviours. But when I used those in the short term, it was much, much more effective. And then the other way that I've done it, which also I find has helped for periods of time where I went through, I had a period of time where I had some surgery, and I had a recovery period from that surgery, coincided with a very difficult part of my personal life. That meant I took my eye off the ball for a short while. Once I realised what was happening, I realised I needed to step in and sort it out before it became a big problem, before I ended up regaining all my weight. And so what I did on that occasion was I didn't feel mentally that I could focus on doing a really strict calorie deficit, because I just wasn't in the right frame of mind to be able to do it, and there was far too much going on in my life for me to be able to concentrate on doing that. That I decided to take an alternative approach, which was by just going into a very moderate calorie deficit and doing more exercise, but not too much. So I made sure that I was doing some resistance training, that I was doing walking, but I was doing some HIIT style workouts, but only keeping them very, very short. And I was making sure that I was eating enough to be able to fuel my workouts, but I wasn't trying to do either the diet or the exercise, concentrating on them in too much detail and expecting too much of myself, so that I wouldn't then feel I was failing. And I set myself 100 days. I said, right, for 100 days I'm going to do this. So it was no alcohol, minimal processed food, following like 80-20 principles, where 80% of my calories were really highly nutritious, nutrient dense foods, minimally processed. But then I had 20% to be able to eat whatever I wanted. So I didn't feel like I was completely depriving myself of all the things that I wanted. But I did make a firm rule about no alcohol, because alcohol can really interfere with our efforts to lose weight. And I thought I can manage that for 100 days. So that's what I did. And that was enough for me to be able to shed those the small amount of weight that I'd gained, and be able to feel back to my normal self again. And that's what I did. So both of those ways worked for me really, really well, because I wasn't trying to do too much all at once, and I wasn't trying to expect too much of myself. I wasn't trying to do anything that was going to interfere with my body's ability to burn calories, because that's so important that we maintain that. And now every now and then, so it's unrealistic to expect that we are going to to be able to keep our weight at an absolute constant all of the time. And what I do these days is I have a healthy range that I allow myself to fluctuate within through the year. So if I know I'm going to be on holiday, if we've got Christmas coming up, for example, that's when I allow myself to gain a little bit, but within reason. And then I use those strategies again afterwards to get myself back on an even keel and stay healthy and stay happy and comfortable. And that's what works for me. So my suggestion to you would be perhaps just take a look at what you do and what perhaps has worked for you in the past, what perhaps has maybe worked in the short term but then didn't last, and you perhaps had some of those things that I've just described in terms of that sort of like rebound, and see whether you can adjust your approach so that you are not trying to burn the candle at both ends, because that's when we run into the troubles, when we're trying to burn the candle at both ends and we put too much pressure on ourselves and we don't prepare ourselves properly mentally for what it is that we're about to do. There's so much more to this, and obviously this is what I cover in much more detail in my programme. But in terms of just a little bit of sensible advice about how you can perhaps take some of the pressure off yourself, learn to be kind to yourself in the process of doing this, because losing weight, as I've said many times before, is one of the hardest things that we can do. Yet we expect it should be easy because other people make it look easy. It's not easy, and when we try to lose weight, we are going into conflict with our biology. So we've got to find a way of working with our biology and not against it, and that's the formula that I've found that has worked for me. So I'm not going into conflict with my biology. I am able to manage the two, the conflict in a much more much easier way. A way that feels good, a way that feels helpful and constructive. So that's all I'm going to say for now. But one more thing I will say is actually, I appreciate when we have a lot to lose, we want to get it off as quickly as possible, and I think that's entirely understandable, entirely natural. But I think what's important to remember is that by trying to lose all of our weight continuously, all in one go, we tend to potentially set ourselves up for problems later down the line. So by actually using things like holidays, for example, as strategic maintenance breaks, where you can actually eat a little bit more but not go overboard, you can learn to manage that part of you that wants to eat all the things, then we're much more likely to get long-term results. So it's okay to take breaks. I think that's the key thing. And it's also okay to be flexible and not think you've got to do the same thing all of the time. I didn't, and that, I believe, is what really made the difference for me and enabled me to learn how to maintain my weight after losing it and be in the position now to be able to help people like you. So that's all I'm going to say. Except for, actually, I've got some tips. I forgot the tips. I've got 5 tips for you. 1, proper preparation is absolutely key. You've got to make sure your mindset is prepared, as well as your knowledge about what to eat. You've got to keep it simple. The more complicated we make it, the more hoops we have to jump through, the less likely it is you're going to stick to it. So if it means buying pre-packaged food, which means slightly more expensive, if that means you're not going to blow 3 times as much money on a takeaway because you got too tired and you couldn't cook something healthy and sensible, then in my opinion that's a saving. Healthy eating is not complicated or expensive when we take the time to learn how to do it properly and prioritise it over other things. That's key. Don't try and be perfect, but try to aim for the best choice that you can in any given situation. And the more easily you're able to identify the ingredients, the easier it is. So don't choose things that are a bit covered in sauces and things like pies, because that is just really difficult to work out. Whereas if you can clearly see what's going into your meals, then it's a lot easier to manage. Remind yourself that it's okay and indeed vital for our mental health to take breaks, because it's really stressful trying to lose weight continuously. And also it's important for our metabolism to keep reminding our body that we're not in a famine. We don't want it to slow down the functions and preserve our energy. We want to burn it when we're trying to lose weight. You might also want to think about a calorie budget for the week rather than a day, because that helps to manage social occasions on it becomes much more manageable to do it that way. And perhaps don't use Monday as your weigh-in day. Perhaps think about different ways that you can weigh yourself. I tend not to encourage a weekly weigh-in. There's lots of really good reasons for that, which I'll say for another day. But what I will say is that I always weigh the least amount on a Friday. And if you're going to choose a weekly day to weigh in, then choose a Friday if you know that the weekends are the days that you struggle, because you're going to weigh more on a Monday simply because if you've eaten differently, even if you haven't overeaten, if you've eaten differently, you're likely to be retaining more water, which is going to show up, and that'll be cleared by Friday. And then you've got an easier comparison to make. As I say, I have a different strategy about weighing, which I'll say for another day. And then finally, I would just say, if you really want any help with this, then why not get my book? Because that basically goes into lots of detail about how you can develop better eating behaviours and be able to eat less without it feeling like a battle. So I am really going to leave it there because I've got to go into my accountability club now and do their fourth task for February. So I hope that was helpful. Do let me know in the comments. Can't believe I nearly forgot to tell you the tips. But they will all be coming out in a post later in the week as well. And I will see you next week, which is going to be the 6th of March. And next month, the theme is all about how managing our weight is like managing our money. And I'm going to be talking you through that all next month. So let me know in the comments if that was helpful. Let me know if you change anything, if you try anything. And I will see you next week. And oh, don't forget, we have got the March challenge starting on Wednesday. If you want to take part, there's lots of posts in the group about it. So take a look. See you soon. Bye.